This is the first time that Ms. Nixon has been able to come to LA since that announcement has been made. So we wanted to have a press availability so that you guys could speak with her and that she could say what she wanted to say. And so just before we start, it's LA capital T-I-S-H-A, okay? It's like, you know, the T is capitalized. I see sometimes that and no space. When you guys write her name, well, journalists, it's misspelled a lot, so it's LaTisha Nixon. And so it's pretty informal. I'm Jasmine, this is Ms. Nixon. This is Cory. He'll introduce himself. Cory is one of Gemmel's best friends. And at the end of the table is attorney Hussain, Turk, David Cunningham, and Jerome Kitchen, who worked with us in terms of, you know, just doing this this battle, this fight for justice here in Los Angeles, and Mayor Pro Tem, West Hollywood Mayor Pro Tem Lindsey Horvath. So the floor is yours.
Thank you all for coming. I'm a little emotional, sorry.
How do you feel? When you found out that Ed Black had finally been arrested, what went through your mind? How did you feel?
I felt finally. It just seemed like we have been struggling and hollering, you know, for anyone who would listen, and finally someone listened and can't hurt anybody.
And when you found out about the feds coming in and the charges actually being directly connected to your son's death?
I didn't see that coming, but I was so happy that the feds got it and it got snatched from Jackie Lacey.
Because what?
I want to say a whole lot, but I'm be nice. Jackie Lacey, she dragged her feet, and it just really appalled me when I seen the press conference. I didn't even watch the whole thing all the way through because I was appalled that she tried to take credit for work that she didn't even do. If it wasn't for our team, Jasmyne, Hussain, Lindsey, Jerome, Nana, if everybody, you know, Cory, everybody that just wouldn't let it die, that spoke out about it, we would not have been here. And it just really appalled me that our team didn't get the credit that we deserve. I'm a pretty private person. Mel, pretty private. If he could come back and say something, he would be like, Ma, pretty private, and I don't have any privacy now. It's like I'm under a microscope. But the fight is not over. We are Timothy Dean. We're awaiting charges for him. We want justice for Timothy Dean. We want justice for all the rest of the victims. And we are just happy that anyone anymore, which is the reason why we came here.
Have you had any discussions with the United States attorneys?
About anything that Gemmel told you or shared with you about his relationship with Mr. Buck?
Well, Gemmel told me about Mr. Buck years ago, like 2016, and I didn't. The story just seemed so crazy. I just didn't believe it, and few days. And, that he shot him up with something and he didn't know what it was. And I was like, when he started crying and screaming, and I knew that he, you know, he wasn't lying. So as a mother, I'm trying to find out, like, somebody help my kid. So I tell him to go to the police, and he did, and they turned him away. They told him to get out.
How do you intend to continue forward, as you put it, in your quest for justice here? Have you talked with the United States Attorney's Office to get a sense from them, since Mr. Buck has not been charged with the death of Gemmel, but we're talking now about all the information that Sheriff's Homicide and everything else has is now in the hands of federal investigators in the U.S. Attorney's Office. Do you intend to press them to say, what do you intend to do about my son's death, if anything?
No one has reached out to me. I haven't heard from anybody. I get updates from both of my attorneys, Jasmine. I don't plan to press them. I plan to let them do their job, because I trust them a lot more than I do DA Jackie Lacey.
Could you talk us through again how you found out about the U.S. Attorney's Office filing those charges? Was it a phone call from somebody? Was it from Jasmine? And then just take us through what that phone call was like.
Jasmine keeps me informed. Jasmine, Hussain, and Nana, they keep me informed with everything. As you guys know, I live in Texas, so I don't get to see a lot of what you all see. So they're pretty active in my life. So Jasmine called me, and she told me that Buck was arrested, and she told me that there was going to be a press conference, and she explained everything that's going on. So I watched the press conference, and as I stated, I just turned it off because Jackie Lacey was lying. It just really upset me. My son died here. This is, you know, when all the cameras go away and everybody go, I have to deal with the fact my child is not here. I can't pick up the phone. I can't hug him. I can't fuss at him. I can't talk to him. Me and Gemmel were pretty close. So I have to live with this, and it just hurts me that people are lying. People are trying to sell documentaries, and people are trying to sell stories. My son died here. My child that I birthed out of my body. I can't see him. I can't talk to him. All I have left is memories. That's it. So while you may see me look like I have it all together, I'm dying on the inside. A piece of me died July 27th, which is the reason why I couldn't just keep quiet and not say nothing. I had to say something. Some of Gemmel's friends, oh, Ma, don't tell nobody. No. I have to say something. And I don't regret coming forward to say something, because now look what happened.
But the initial charges by the DA didn't even really include Gemmel at all. So on the one hand, you were grateful that he was arrested, but on the other hand, at least until the feds came in, it wasn't, the charges weren't related to your son's death. How did that make you feel?
To be honest, I was just grateful that he wasn't able to hurt anybody. I was just grateful for that. You know, as I stated, it was a small victory. I didn't even see anything coming until Jasmine and Hussain contacted me, and they're like, oh, you know, he's been charged with Gemmel, and I'm checking, wait a minute, what? Did you say what? And they're like, yeah. So it was like a victory. Oh my God, thank you, Jesus, I pray. And a lot of people up here, we pray. So I'm just grateful that they got charges against him. You know, my son didn't die in vain. That means a lot.
In the course of you guys' own independent investigation and trying to get charges for Ed, but when we hear his name in the media, only thing that we hear attached to it is that he was a political donor. Can you guys tell us any other information that you found out during the course of your investigation that could lead us to understand why it seemed that he seems to be protected in the city of West Hollywood?
He was a Republican in Arizona that ran into some drug charges. I'm like an investigator side, so I did all the snooping. And he was a Republican in Arizona who ran into some charges because he was trying to get some drugs from his doctor, and his doctor so he had that issue. Then he moved here, changed his name from Edward Buckmelter to Ed Buck, and his political party for the influence of this area, which I find this area to be very red, but they're covering it up in blue. So then he just donates all his money, which clearly gave him the path that he has. And then his friends, his longtime attorneys, John Duran and him, run partner to partner, and they clearly protected him all this time. And I feel like Jackie Lacey lied in the press conference to cover up everything that they've been covering. And but at the same time that she was lying, the federal prosecutor was coming back and like contradicting everything that she was saying. And then if you looked at his facial remarks and his emotions while she was talking, you can see that he knew she was blatantly lying. But he wasn't there to cover up anything. And she mentioned that all the teams were working together, and that's what got them there. But then once he spoke, he said that they finally took over this case in July, and that came out when the questions were asked. But I don't believe if that question wasn't asked that we would know that the federal took it over in July.
I would like to just ask this was a very complicated case for the media to wrap their heads around. It was complicated for the public to wrap their heads around. You're talking about a white man who's a Democrat, a white man who's gay and a Democrat. You're talking about black gay men who some of them engaged in survival sex work, who are homeless. There was the whole sex aspect to it. There was the meth aspect to it. I mean, I had newspapers that just could not wrap their head around that. Like, just all of those different, I mean, we could watch it on TV, but when it unfolds in real life, it was actually really difficult for a lot of people to digest and understand. People don't want to believe that there's a divide in the LGBTQ community down the lines of race, and there has been for years and years and years. And while West Hollywood has gotten tremendously better, ask a lot of black, gay, and lesbians who are older than 40 what West Hollywood used to be like for them when they would come here to try to be free with everybody else. And so this one case had the intersection of race, politics, class, I mean, and it was just very, very difficult. Yeah.
And I think that tying him to a political party was beneficial for us. But in society today, we just have to be honest with the main fact that Ed Buck was able to elude justice for so long is because he's a white man, and majority of his crimes were did to black males. Eliminate the party, eliminate any other thing. He was a white male, and in this country, white males are able to inflict pain and hurt on minority communities without justice. That's across the board, whether it's a black gay male, a lesbian woman, a trans woman. White men have been given a free pass in society to do as they want. And now today, in this new generation, we at the community are fighting back against that. Yes, Jasmine mentioned that from our culture, our elders experience a lot of hate and discrimination here in West Hollywood.
Sorry, being over 40 is not an elder.
But with this community, however, we still experience it. Just to go to the city council meetings and to tell us that a bicycle lane meant more than Jamil's life, or the infrastructure of a city meant more than dead bodies being carried out of a home, or to even laugh in our face about how much money this city has, but the city does not have enough resources to stop black males from being pulled out of a home dead from situations that we should not have to die from. So the main reason that Ed Buck was able to elude any justice was because he was a white man. And in society, our justice system has to answer up to that in order for other minorities and people from our community to feel safe and make sure that we turn predators in. And Buck is one of many. And the thing that makes Jamil's situation so hard for me is because I was a sex worker before. I was addicted to drugs. I walked this life with Jamil, and the Jamil that I knew would not have even used drugs. So to know that somebody with greater power than him and greater power, greater than he had ever encountered, was able to get him down to that low where he felt as if that was his only option, it's a bigger problem here in this city. And I'm glad that I'm sad that Jamil died, but I'm glad that I am able to live and keep his name going, because it's a lot of Ed-Bucks out there, right here in this community. Right here in this community. They prey on us in these bars, in these alleys, and the city is allowing it to happen. So the city has to say no more. More than Lindsey have to speak up against this. There is a city council members, there is a mayor here, there is community members here. Everybody has to speak up against this. I'm glad that the community began to rally around us, but it was a long time coming. And until we all fight this fight together, we're not gonna see this end, because Ed Buck is one of many.
And him, as he speaks so, vocal and bold, he's been attacked more than one time just for fighting for justice for his friend. And I don't find that to be fair. It's been in the city council meetings. They then act like they were gonna start this investigation to find out who it was that threw racial slurs at him. I've never heard anything else about that. But to get back on Gemmel, one of the questions was how the relationship came about. I know my first time in LA, Memorial Weekend 2016, he took me past Ed Buck's house and he told me that this man wants to inject him for $300 or $400. And he said, this man is crazy, I would never do this, we need to do something. And I told him then we needed to, because for me, I don't believe in, there's no one superior. Like in my head, there's nobody above me, we're all on the same level. But Gemmel was scared because he knew that this man had a lot of money. I still don't think he got that much, I don't know. But this man, he felt like he was invincible and untouchable. And I was like, well, we know who we need to go to get it in the news. And he was scared, but so now, and Gemmel also posted in July before he died that he's very private. He didn't even go by his real name. No one knew his government name. So the fact that now his whole life story is put out there, they know his government name, is I thought that this was all, I was beating myself up because I felt like all this would be in vain because we got a second death. They got all these victims that even though they granted immunity, but what did they really do with the information that the team gave them? Nothing. So now I feel vindicated, I feel relief. I had so much anger and pain built up, but now it's like it wasn't in vain because for me, I find that it may sound hard, but I feel like his purpose in life was now his death because now I think he's changed the world by his story and by us being out there fighting. I moved here from New York to fight and be here to be with the team during this time. So now I feel like everything that we've done, we've even protested outside of the landlord's house, trying to figure out why all the neighbors signed this petition over and over, and they're the ones at the protests. They're asking us when we're out there, just the team without the media, they're like, why aren't y'all out here every day? Y'all have this man too comfortable. So the neighbors didn't mind us being out there, So now that, I just seen that he's being evicted on the way here, that is another victory. So it's nothing that we did in this fight over the 2 years was in vain. And that's amazing to me. And then you asked, what did it feel when you found out he got arrested? I was out the country. It was 4:45 in the morning. I'm sure it was 7, 8 p.m. here. And I was headed to the airport. I brought this shirt specifically to wear that Wednesday, without knowing anything was gonna happen. I just take him everywhere with me. And I was hollering in the street on the way to the airport, hollering, thank you, Jesus, thank you, Lord. Everyone looking at me like I'm crazy, but I didn't care because they don't know what that feeling was. So that wasn't even before I knew about the charges with FBI taking over. That was when he just got arrested. Just to get him off the street was enough for me. Well, not enough, but it was good enough. It was the start, that's what we needed just to get him away. But then the next day to find out that the FBI took over this case is okay, so now we're not worried about the little pat on the wrist that Jackie Lacey and them were trying to do, which was to cover up for several other reasons that I may not be able to speak on. But the FBI taking it over now, and then knowing that he has a minimum of 20, maximum of life without parole, that was like music to my soul, you know? And I really don't like, you know, being proud of other people's demise, but the fact that I'm very religious, so I'm very spiritual. And I did not talk to God about this because I didn't feel like God was gonna handle him the way I wanted him handled, you know? But the fact that it was on his time and it happened, it's everything for me, you know?
Can you tell us just a bit about yourself, right, just before all this happened, just so we have a better sense of him, you know, what his sort of like interests were, his history, or anything you want us, you know, folks to know about?
Yeah, so me and him.
You, both of you, yeah.
Oh, well, Gemmel, we're actually from here. We were living in Victorville, and then, as I said, I'm a mom of 5, so I moved to Texas to be with my sister, who moved there with her husband. And so Gemmel decided to stay here, but we're very close, so I would always call, boy, where you at, what you doing? So I had been in Texas for a few years, and he would come and visit me, periodically, stay a few months. And then, he called me like 3 months before he decided to come back here, and he was murdered. And he just said, Mom, I wanna come home. So I let him come home. And, you know, Gemmel.
What were his aspirations? What did he hope to do with his life that was cut short?
Well, Gemmel loved to cook. I wish you all could have knew Gemmel, because he was funny. He had jokes. He was hilarious. And, but he loved to cook. He was working with somebody in the legal field. I know he was doing filing and doing things in the legal office. Gemmel had a lot of aspirations, a lot of things. I mean, he just was basically trying to figure it out because he was here, I was in Texas.
Ms. Nixon, can you tell us what you personally did? I know you give a lot of credit to Jasmine and the rest of the team, but did you make phone calls to try to figure out why there was no movement on the investigation?
Well, when my son was murdered, I got a call from the sheriff's department, and I immediately knew something was wrong. They told me that my son was, the coroner told me my son was found naked, dead on a mattress, at Edward Buck's house. So I didn't click Edward Buck, it just didn't click. So I called around to, Gemmel's friends, and they're the ones that said Ed Buck. So it clicked, Ed Buck, what the hell? So, I had talked to, Gemmel's, dad in the community, only dad I recognized. And we were discussing, like, what could I do? Because something is not right. I kept calling the coroner, I kept calling the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. I kept calling, you know, asking them to investigate, because something is not right. Every parent knows their child. I know my son. And he was scared of needles. So I knew something was wrong. So I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna email some people. So I got online, I researched, I got emails, and I just started emailing people. So then I had came across Dennis Romero with LA Weekly. He was with LA Weekly, and he introduced me to my sister girl here, Jasmine, and I trusted her every step of the way. And then Hussain came and introduced himself to me, and we've been family, and I just met everybody else. I've been to Cory, but we all just pulled together as a team, and we're a family now. It's been a journey. So, people
Ms.
like
Nixon, can you comment at all about the role of Joe Doe?
I don't feel comfortable, because I don't know anything about Joe Doe.
No, I
but
mean, the
he's a
fact
hero.
that he provided the piece that investigators were looking for that led ultimately
blasting, so grateful that he wasn't the third victim. Because I said it the last time we were down here, that there was gonna be a third victim. We said there was gonna be a second victim. We kept saying, because we all knew, everyone on this panel knew, Ed Buck didn't stop doing what he was doing. We all knew. So I'm just so grateful that he's alive and he's, I'm hearing he's a really nice guy.
Yes. And I just want to add, Miriam, because the way you phrased your question is as if Joe Doe provided the information for the
Yeah,
sheriff
I didn't
department
mean
to
to
make their
imply
arrest.
that he.
They already had
They
information.
had the information.
Yeah, they just
but
chose
the
not
fact
to
that
act.
he
Yeah.
was used as the,
Yeah.
the missing piece.
He
There-
was used as
Yeah.
missing piece,
The
but they
second-
There were
certainly
several
had
other Joe
information.
Does.
A
There
lot,
were
yes.
numerous Joe
There were Joe
Does.
Does.
And over 2
Yeah.
years, our team worked together to bring 7 or 8 Joe Does to the county. The county interviewed them. During these interviews, they each told their stories about how they were forced to ingest or forcibly injected with crystal methamphetamine at lethal doses, sometimes while they were passed out and not even conscious. But because they were black gay men, the county didn't care to listen to their stories. The county didn't care to follow up on these Joe Does. So it wasn't just this third Joe Doe, but this is finally the Joe Doe that they listened to. And because there were so many in between, we actually filed an amended civil complaint this morning to reflect the fact that it took more than 2 years of testimony and interviews by black gay men that we took to the sheriff's office, not the sheriff's went out and found, that we took to them, that took the county 2 years to do something. And the fact that it took 2 years is unconstitutional. Yeah, go ahead.
So sorry. I just wanted to say, I thought you were finished, and I'm gonna cut you off, but like,
It's okay.
was Joe Doe white? Was he black or like?
No, he was black. All of his victims are black gay men, with the exception of one victim that we took to the sheriff's office.
So what was different about this Joe Doe? What you saying?
The fact that the DEA was finally on the case and the county needed to save face. The fact that the county's charges only reflect criminal acts against one Joe Doe, the most recent, while the federal charges reflect criminal conduct against all of our witnesses, shows that the county failed in its investigation. Why do the feds care more about what happens in LA County than actual LA County officials? That's a violation of the Constitution. They didn't take seriously the criminal complaints of black gay men. They rejected them, they ignored them, and that's why we're pushing forward for justice, not just in criminal court, but against the county in civil court.
So Hussain, what needs to change then? This whole group has been very critical of the county, of DA Jackie Lacey, to anyone. I mean, what do we want to see moving forward? How do we prevent something like this from happening?
We need to pay better attention to the criminal complaints of black gay men and of black people. Black lives matter. We shouldn't have to literally beg for 2 years that the county investigate the death of a black gay man. But that's what we had to do. So we need county officials that care, that will investigate these reports and these complaints, that will take the time that they reserve for white men and white women and give those resources to other people who are just as much deserving of protection by our criminal injustice system.
And I'm gonna add this. A number of our Joe Does went to the sheriff's station and were turned away. It started there. It started with Gemmel when he went to the sheriff's station to report Ed Buck and was told to leave. And numerous other Joe Does were not taken seriously. So when we say we need county officials, we're talking about county officials at the desk in the sheriff's department, all the way up to the district attorney's office.
And everyone isn't, in my head, everyone isn't a Joe Doe because some people came forward and put their stuff out publicly with their real name out there, and they may be in another state. And they had this information, and I've seen some of the videos in the news recently from those other people as well. And that's their life and their story being put on the front. But then for Jackie Lacey to come and say, oh, it's all based on hearsay in the court of law and it won't hold up. So why did you take these people in, take their story? Now it's public, right? And then another thing that bothers me is with Gemmel was, to me, slandered in the news based on just the headlines alone. Gay, homeless man. Well, anyone that's not technically on a lease and their name isn't there, legally you're homeless, I suppose, but he had family, he had people that cared, and he wasn't like in the street, like sleeping in the street like the homeless in LA. And that's how they made him out to be. Timothy Dean, the very first article, they put his past out there on what he did. I don't want to bring it up because it's not necessary. They shouldn't have did that. But when you see Ed Buck's name, it's always wealthy political donor, wealthy this. And I get this question all the time. Ed Buck was gay? What? Ed Buck was gay? Yes, obviously he was gay. No one has put that in the paper. Like, it's not gay, wealthy, political donor, big time donor. It's just Ed Buck, you know. Yes, he's gay. Put that out there. He's not like, and then they're like, so why are they going over there? Read the news, get the facts of the story that's been presented out there. And everyone's like really just working and doing their job, which I understand. But at the end of the day, you have families that have to relive this over and over and over. And then I recently even seen Fox News try to slander New York Times for calling Ed Buck a mini donor. But then when you click into it, you have David Bruno. I don't care. I don't care. He said, yeah, that's his name. He said that he feels $4 million for a bond is too high. He doesn't feel like the federal prosecutors had enough evidence to actually get the conviction that we're looking for. And that was tied to the New York Times. But I didn't see anything about New York Times and the mini donor that they spoke about.
And I'll also add this. If Jackie Lacey felt like our victims and witnesses were second person and it was hearsay, why is it good enough for the feds?
Also, I know everyone wants to, LaTisha, we thank LaTisha and Mr. Timothy Dean's family, but recently, since the charges have been delivered on him, but everyone wants to minimize Jasmyne's work and what she has done for our community, and we don't want to minimize her. We don't want her to become a scapegoat for why this is happening. Ed Buck's lawyers hang her out to dry. She has been the voice of the community. Our community looks to her for a rescue more than we would look to the DA, and that's sad. So although everybody was doing press conferences giving the federal investigators and the DA things, our community was thanking Jasmyne. Because if it wasn't a Jasmyne that put together Timothy Dean's family, Miss Nixon's family, and all of us, and kept us going. As Cory said, we all wanted to give up countless times. And Jasmyne reminded us, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. And if she did not encourage us for the 22 years and 53 days, we would have gave up. And had we gave up, the system would have gave up. So we acknowledge that, we thank the families. We honestly thank the families. But we give a lot of credit to Jasmyne because without her endurance, we wouldn't be here. And we honestly believe that this justice would not be here without Jasmyne and her hard work. So let's not minimize her and the efforts that she put. She's taking money out of her pocket, resources. She's taking her time from her own family to make sure us as gay black men feel appreciated.
And to answer your question about what do we want to see going forward, we want to see more people like Jasmyne in office. You know, she was dedicated. Like, she's had her own family deaths and anything.
It is.
Yes, it is. This is all you. This is you and Lindsey. Because if we didn't have Lindsey either, Lindsey's down here by herself. There's a whole chamber. You know, everybody. Her counterparts should be here too, you know. She was the only one to stand out, and that takes a lot of courage in the office, you know. I feel like people say what they want, and it might mean something from the heart before they get in the office, but when they get in the office, they have to get in and go by formula. Other than that, they won't be there. Lindsey and Jasmyne both, you know. And the attorneys, absolutely.
I wanted to, you asked the question about what needs to change. So, this is an issue of criminal law and someone who was a serial killer, a predator, and narcotics. But meth in the gay community in West Hollywood is a public health epidemic that needs to be dealt with accordingly. There are black and brown gay men who are dying disparately and disproportionately of meth overdoses right here in West Hollywood. And it's not being addressed. And so as much as we want to rally around the arrest of Ed Buck and the civil case around ed buck in the county, we also need to invest in our public health infrastructure and look at why Black and brown gay men are getting hooked on crystal meth and dying at the rates that they died from AIDS in the 80s and 90s.
We need to look at that in the same way we're all looking at vaping right now. Like how everybody's all over vaping and the federal government, the state and the county just moved something. That's the same way we need to look at meth. I know it's getting a little late, and I know some of you guys want to do one-on-ones with Ms. Nixon. That's completely up to her if she wants to do them. But I did want to give Mayor Pro Tem Lindsey an opportunity to have, I guess, the last word. Say what you wanted to say. You want to come to in front of the mic? Because you have not said anything. And I would say, I mean, we are a team, and we had allies everywhere. And I'm just so grateful that we had Lindsey here in West Hollywood to help us.
I'm just grateful to all of the members of this team, all of the folks in the community who kept the story alive and kept up the pressure. I think what they have done, that they made voices heard in our community, is very important. I am sincerely grateful to Ms. Nixon, to the family of Timothy Dean, to everyone who kept this conversation going. I don't know how they have the strength, the courage, and the grace that they have in this very difficult time. And so I'm completely in awe of Ms. Nixon and the families who are experiencing such great hardship and tragedy. We have work to do in the community, and we've already begun some of the work that needs to be done. But we also need to learn what we can be doing better. And I think that's part of the conversation, and that needs to happen. So.
Lindsey, how seriously did your colleagues take this issue, and what sort of roadblocks did you face with this?
I can't speak for what my colleagues did or didn't do. What I can say is the city takes this issue very seriously. The city takes what has gone on, what was reported to have happened on Laurel Avenue very seriously. And every step of the way, Jasmyne and her courageous leadership, these folks really stepped up. I mean, when I heard that, back when they were trying to have folks come forward to talk about Gemmel's death, that they needed immunity for folks to come forward and to testify. I called the district attorney's office every day for a week, not getting return phone calls, but keeping up and calling and saying, this needs to happen. We need to make sure that justice is served. We need to make sure that all facts come to light. And I'm continuing to say that because I think there will be more stories that come forward. There were stories that came to me from the community from folks who didn't want to talk to the sheriff's department, to folks who were not what they felt were part of their community, but they felt had information. And so I continue to implore anyone who has information on any of these cases to come forward and report, because it is essential. And as we know now, there are at least 11 reports that the federal government is looking into, maybe more. And so we need to make sure that all facts come to light and everyone feels safe to come forward and report. We know that a lot of times when people come forward and report, they're not heard, they're not believed. And so we are working hard to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to report safely and to be heard and to be believed.
And I want to thank all of y'all, for
Can I just get
reporting.
spellings? Pardon me, can we get spellings on names?
Hold on
please?
1 second, Susan. What were you saying, Cory?
I want to thank all of you all for keeping the story alive, and reporting on it. Just because we do have him away, this is all we have left of Gemmel is his ashes. And to know that he can't hurt anybody else means the world to us. So I thank everybody as a collective.
Whose name do you need, Susan?
This gentleman and the other gentleman is good.
You wanna go with Hussain?
Yeah, Hussain. Last name is Turk, Turk.
Cory, CoryMcLean. McLean.
Jerome Kitchen, Jerome, Kitchen, KITCHEN.
Thank you.
So did anyone, I know I had got some requests of people wanting to like one-on-ones with Ms. Nixon before she left. Does anyone still have that request? These aren't like long, lengthy one-on-ones, but like